On Zombie Reddit, today's story is:
My husband accused me of being insensitive for not accepting that he has a son with his ex who is dying. My husband Kevin, 33 years old, was previously married to Alice, 32 years old. Their marriage lasted 4 years, ending 8 years ago. The divorce process was particularly complicated because Alice demanded excessive alimony that Kevin, understandably, refused to pay. The breakup was mainly due to 2 factors. Kevin had become too dedicated to his work shortly after getting married, and over time he realized that they were not compatible. For her part, Alice showed a constant distrust of him, repeatedly accusing him of infidelity without any proof. After finalizing their tortuous divorce, they cut off all contact and went their separate ways. Last week, Alice turned up unexpectedly at our door. She had got our address from a mutual friend from university, explaining that she needed to talk to Kevin in person about an urgent matter. When I opened the door, I recognized her immediately. She, for her part, did not seem surprised to see me and apologized for showing up unannounced, insisting that she needed to talk to both of us about something important. I invited her in and called Kevin. At first, Kevin was visibly annoyed by her presence. However, Alice got straight to the point. She had been diagnosed with ALS, motor neuron disease, and her life expectancy was limited. This news hit us hard, as it was the last thing we expected to hear. Her frankness in communicating it left us speechless. Both Kevin and I tried to comfort her, and I could see that my husband was deeply affected, holding back tears. But Alice wasn't finished. She explained that she wasn't looking for comfort, but had come to ask us to fulfill her last wish. Kevin, moved, assured her that he would do his best to help her. I too felt great compassion for her, being so young and facing such a devastating diagnosis. Naively, I thought that her request would be something we could reasonably fulfill. I was completely wrong. Alice revealed to us that her greatest wish was to be a mother. She told us that she had been researching IVF and anonymous donors for months, but that her diagnosis had changed her perspective. Now she wanted Kevin to be the donor so that she could carry the pregnancy to term. Her proposal included shared custody until her death, at which point I would become the baby's mother, raising him together with Kevin. I was stunned by such a proposal, thinking it must be a joke. It was a completely inappropriate request to make to your ex-husband, with whom you have had no contact for years, and to his current wife. To my surprise and horror, Kevin did not immediately reject the idea. After a few minutes of silence, he told Alice that he needed time to think about it and consult with me, as it was too important a decision to make alone. Alice accepted this answer. They said goodbye with a hug and he left. After she left, I waited for Kevin to admit the absurdity of the situation, thinking that he had only been polite so as not to hurt Alice's feelings at the time. However, when he returned to our room and remained silent, I had to ask him directly if he was really considering accepting. His answer left me speechless. He told me that he didn't think it was such a far-fetched request and that, as it was her last wish, we should at least consider it. I immediately panicked. I was particularly concerned about the hereditary nature of ALS and the possibility that the baby could inherit the disease, in addition to other equally important practical considerations. I tried to explain to Kevin why this arrangement would be a terrible mistake, but he insisted that he needed time to process it, arguing that his long history with Alice could not be ignored, especially given her current condition. He even suggested that the fact that she had specifically come to him had a special significance that we should consider positively. To give context, I suffer from endometriosis, which hinders my ability to conceive. At 33, I am aware that these difficulties will only increase over time. Kevin and I have been together for 3 years, married for 1, and we have been trying to have a baby for several months. We recently decided to take a break as we were not having any success, planning to try again later. It was just 1 month after this decision that Alice came up with her proposal. Kevin interprets this situation as a sign from the universe suggesting that we should abandon our own attempts to conceive, considering that it might be too difficult for me, and instead accept Alice's last wish. This is his way of finding something positive in the situation, completely ignoring the fact that she is dealing with a terminal illness and all the other implications that this entails. I feel that Kevin, emotionally affected by the whole situation, is being too idealistic in his way of thinking. I made my position clear to him. I categorically refused to consider this proposal. This triggered one of the worst fights we have ever had in our relationship, if not the worst. That same afternoon, after the argument, I packed a few things and went to my parents' house, needing space to emotionally process the whole situation. I felt deeply hurt and speechless at the absurdity of it all. Kevin had gone out for a walk to clear his head when I left, and when he returned to find the house empty, he started calling me. I answered expecting an apology for his insensitivity, but instead he accused me of being the unreasonable and insensitive one, both to him and to Alice, who was fighting for her life. He told me that this was the last thing she was asking for and that we should at least consider it, suggesting that it was an opportunity to have a baby without me having to go through the process of pregnancy. He even reproached me for not being grateful enough for this opportunity. During this call we had another heated argument where he accused me of being insecure about Alice's influence in his life, which was especially painful, more than anything I had said before. Over the last few days, we have been in a constant tug-of-war over the issue. I haven't been able to block him because he alternates between being furious with me and begging me to reconsider my position. I can see that he is deeply affected by Alice's situation, but his proposal is completely out of line. He has been acting irrationally about all of this, and when he spoke to my parents about it, they agreed with me that it is a terrible idea and that it is crazy that he is even considering it. I have reached the point of seriously contemplating divorce, as I see no other way out of this situation. However, I feel guilty about considering leaving him when he is going through such a difficult time emotionally. I am completely torn and don't know what to do. Would I be the bad guy if I decided to file for divorce because my husband wants to be a donor so his ex can have a baby as her last wish? Addition, to give more context, Kevin and Alice started their relationship at university and were together for almost 8 years, from when they started dating until their divorce. When Kevin and I started our relationship, he told me about how serious his relationship with Alice had been, and although they hadn't communicated for years, he admitted that they had had a very deep connection. However, as his divorce had ended so badly and they had not kept in touch for so long, I never saw it as a threat to our relationship. Moreover, when I started dating him, he barely mentioned her, except when talking about his university years. That's why I had no reason to feel insecure or suspicious, and that's also why I wasn't alarmed when she showed up at our house. But now, given the current situation, I've started to wonder if he really got over her completely. The observations you've made in the comments are not unrelated to my own thoughts, but I resist thinking the worst of him, at least for now when everything is so complicated. Although I don't rule out the possibility that he still has feelings for her and that seeing her has rekindled those emotions, I prefer not to delve into that topic at the moment. Update 1. I want to thank you all for your kind words and support. It's been a couple of days since my original post and I've made a decision. I'm going to try and talk to Kevin one last time. I'll try to talk some sense into him, and if that doesn't work, I'll have to find a lawyer to start the divorce process, because this situation is becoming untenable. If I am giving him this last chance, it is only because I understand that he is going through a grieving process. I understand how difficult it must be to know that someone who was an important part of your life for 8 years, with whom you shared a meaningful relationship, will soon be gone. It's a very tough situation and I fully understand. However, that's all I can offer you, my understanding and my condolences. I'm not going to give in to this absurd situation you're getting yourself into because of Alice's last wish. In the last few days, Kevin has stopped being angry in his messages. Instead, he has been begging me to at least consider his proposal. He has been asking me to come back and talk to him, and this morning I replied that I was willing to come back and talk, but on one condition: he can't lose control and start shouting at me like he did before. I made it clear to him that if he does, I will leave immediately. I will not tolerate any more disrespect. The fact that he is upset does not justify his behavior. This situation has also been very upsetting for me, but I have not behaved disrespectfully. Even on the first day, when I tried to discuss the issue with him, I remained calm and tried to handle the situation with dignity. It was he who lost control and started shouting wildly, who accused me of being insecure and jealous during our phone call, and that kind of behavior is not something I'm going to allow anymore. After I made this very clear to him, he apologized for his behavior and admitted that he wasn't thinking clearly, promising to do his best to keep his temper under control and not get carried away by his emotions. At least that reassures me a little, and we've agreed to meet at home tomorrow. Honestly, I don't know what to expect because until recently I thought Kevin was a reasonable and sensible man, but seeing this side of him has made me realize that maybe I was wrong, that maybe grief makes people act in unexpected ways. So, to be honest, I have no idea what to expect tomorrow. Maybe things will improve, maybe not. But at least I'll have the satisfaction of knowing that I did everything I could to save our relationship, and that's all that matters to me now. Update 2. I have just returned from my meeting with Kevin. When I arrived, he received me very kindly, apologized for his previous behavior, and assured me that he would try to keep calm this time. At first, I thought that maybe I had done the right thing in giving him this opportunity. We started talking and I explained my point of view. I told him that I was not prepared for such a situation. I explained that if I wanted to have a baby, I would want it to be completely healthy, and given that ALS has a genetic component, it didn't seem appropriate for Alice to get pregnant. Moreover, considering her diagnosis, it is impossible to predict how the disease will progress, and it is probably not right to subject her to a pregnancy if she herself is not aware of the implications. I told her that, in a way, we would be doing her a favor by refusing. Even if we agreed, if she became pregnant and had the baby, the issue of joint custody would be a whole separate problem, and who knows if they would end up fighting again like the first time, which would not be good for the baby. I also pointed out that it would be especially cruel if Alice gave birth, became actively involved in the baby's life and then had to withdraw because of the illness, as we don't know when this will happen, and it is a major concern when there is a baby involved. I made all these points, which in my opinion were very valid and had nothing to do with jealousy or insecurities towards her. Of course, I didn't mention that, on top of all this, I felt very uncomfortable with the idea itself, but given what he had said before, I didn't think it was wise to mention that aspect. I concentrated on reasoning from the practical side, hoping he would understand, but instead he started to present irrelevant counterarguments. He told me that we just had to accept the situation and that we would solve those problems when they arose. Basically, he wanted to move forward without a plan, he just wanted my approval, and I'm not the kind of person who makes important decisions lightly, especially when it comes to issues like marriage and parenthood. For me, this is serious. I can't take it as lightly as he was doing, and I made that clear to him. This is a fundamental difference between us that I never thought would be tested in this way. I always knew that he was more spontaneous, and I liked that about him. I thought we balanced each other out, but now I'm not so sure. When I disagreed with him, the situation started to become tense again, although this time he managed to keep his temper under control and tried to reason with me, despite being visibly upset. He asked me to put aside all practical considerations and focus on the fact that in the end we would have a baby without me having to go through the pregnancy. He told me that Alice would do it for us and that we would also be doing someone a favor, adding that it wouldn't even be as expensive as surrogacy. I got frustrated at that point and told him straight that I didn't care if we were going to have a baby at the end of the process because I didn't want to get involved in something so complicated and strange. I pointed out to him that before Alice suggested it, no one would have considered this a viable option. I didn't understand why he was even considering it. It was just weird and absurd, and I didn't like it. I reminded him that if we really wanted a baby, I could try to get pregnant naturally, and if that didn't work, we still had options like IVF, surrogacy, and adoption. This whole Alice thing wasn't even something I was willing to consider, and although I could see that he was very affected and that's why he was so determined to fulfill her last wishes, it was a terrible idea and he needed to realize that. I recognized that she was being unreasonable, but I couldn't control that as I was neither her friend nor her family to advise her. However, as Kevin's wife, I could and should advise him against this. I tried to reason with him, but he only looked more and more annoyed. He was silent for a couple of minutes and then told me that, since I had made my decision, we had nothing more to discuss. I still had a lot to say to him. I wanted to shake him and make him see that he was destroying our marriage and his own life, but I was so emotionally exhausted that I just got up and left. I went back to my parents' house, cried for a while, explained the situation to them, and then started looking for divorce lawyers because I can't go on with this any longer. I have given it my best shot. I have tried to be reasonable. I have tried to make him see that what he is doing is madness, but if he doesn't want to understand it, that's his decision, but I am not obliged to be part of this madness and I won't be. Update 3. Sorry for being absent for 2 weeks, but I've been very busy. A couple of days after my last post, I became seriously ill, but managed to recover and got in touch with a lawyer. We prepared the divorce papers and Kevin was served shortly afterwards. A few days ago he responded requesting some minor modifications, but other than that he is not contesting the divorce, so it's final. We are getting divorced and we have had no contact for the last 2 weeks. I have been trying to maintain normality, going to work and pretending that everything is fine. Nobody except my parents knows that we are separating, but inside I am suffering terribly. It's not that I don't want to share this part of my life with my friends. I wish I could tell them how I feel to get it off my chest, but this is so personal and so strange that I don't even know how to approach it. I find it embarrassing to even think about it, and, reading the comments, I've realized how absurd this situation is. Kevin's behavior is ridiculous, and the fact that he's willing to sacrifice our marriage for something like this. I really don't know what to think. I haven't spoken to my in-laws, but I guess they already know because a few days ago I noticed that I had been removed from all their social networks. It was quite shocking because they always seemed to love me very much. They used to refer to me as the daughter they never had. But I guess, given the situation, they decided to take his side, although I don't understand how they can agree with what he is doing. Anyway, it's their loss, and although it still hurts, I'm trying to accept it. In a few days I'll probably post something on social media to announce our separation. In other circumstances, I would have consulted with him before saying anything to anyone, but now I really don't feel the need to do so. I'm just fed up and can't wait for all this to be over. Update 4. It's been about a week since my last update, and today I received a message from an unknown number. When I read it, I realized it was from Alice. This happened just a couple of hours ago and I'm still shocked because I can't believe she actually dared to write me this. The message read, "Hi, I'm really sorry that my last wish caused so many problems in your marriage. I really didn't mean to ruin anyone's relationship. Kevin told me everything and I feel terrible about what has happened. I want to apologize for that before I say anything else. I am truly sorry for everything that has gone wrong. However, I also feel that you have no right to say that I am being unreasonable, considering that you couldn't even make such a small sacrifice for your husband's mental well-being. You can see how distressed he is, even though I have accepted that I won't live long myself. The least you could have done was support him and allow him to have this. Instead, you made him feel worse about himself. You made him think he was ruining everything in his life, when in reality he was just trying to do something nice for me. I don't know why you were so insecure and jealous. We had never met before and I never gave you any reason to doubt Kevin. And yes, that is the attitude you had. It is just awful. I thought that as a woman you would understand, but clearly I was wrong. You were too selfish to think about anyone but yourself, and that's why your marriage is in ruins now. I hate to say it, but Kevin deserves better. I hope you learn a lesson from this and try to broaden your way of thinking. Anyway, I've said what I had to say. I just wish you'd chosen to be kinder, but that ship has sailed. Goodbye, have a nice life. Halfway through reading it, I was on the verge of calling her and telling her everything I thought, because I really couldn't believe she thought she could say these things to me and get away with it. I was furious for a while and even wrote a reply, but at the last moment I decided not to send it because it's simply not worth it. It was obvious that she had sent me this message because she wanted to provoke a reaction, but I'm not going to give her that satisfaction. I read the message one last time, cursed it mentally, and then simply blocked it. I'm not going to waste my time and energy on people like that. I'm simply not interested. In a few months my divorce from Kevin will be finalized and all this will be over forever. I don't need to make any extra effort to make someone understand my point of view. It's simply not necessary. Update 5. It's been 5 months since my last update, and a couple of weeks ago my divorce became official. These last 5 months have been a real emotional roller coaster. Shortly after announcing our separation, some of my friends contacted me and I explained the whole situation to them, ridiculous as it sounded. They completely took my side, and even some mutual friends decided to cut off contact with Kevin because of his behavior, although this didn't seem to affect him at all because, as far as I know, he went ahead with the donation, or maybe they conceived naturally, I'm not sure. 2 months ago I found out that Alice is pregnant, and although they both insist on social media that they are not getting back together, I know that they have been seeing each other a lot more, and maybe they are just keeping up appearances because it wouldn't look good for Kevin to make their relationship official while he is still going through a divorce from me. I can't lie, all of this has hurt a lot, but there is nothing I can do about it anymore. That's why I've decided to concentrate completely on myself. I'm making an effort to improve my life and keep myself distracted from everything to do with him. In fact, I've asked my friends and acquaintances not to tell me anything about what he's doing. I just don't want to know. My only desire is to move on with my life and do what's best for me. That's all that matters to me now.